I know I have memories that my mind has purposely blocked out to protect me, if you know what I mean. And I think that's why oftentimes, I mean, they say with trauma victims, the brain will do that, and why so many of us don't remember and don't get the memories back until our later years. My abuse started at 7 years old, and I have distinct memories of six abuses, two from the first brother and four from the second brother. The other memory that I've had, and which has also been validated since I've gone fully public, is I always had this suspicion that something else was going on in Clarence, New York. Somebody else was also getting hurt. And I found out that two of my other girlfriends were also getting sexually abused by their brothers at the exact same time I was. And they have come forward privately because they're not public about it. But again, how incredibly validating was that for me? And then they said, we have this very distinct memory of you in a pop-up camper, and your brothers, the two that abused me, were guarding that camper and said you were inside and only secrets could come in, and they ran away. I have zero memory of that. I don't, so it was just very helpful to get it out and go public and not have this giant box I've been carrying for 50 years and to really go, those memories are real. What happened to me is true and valid. And even these other women who were, 7, 8 years old at the time are saying, yes, that happened to you. And we know your brothers told you neither one of them knew about the other. Well, that's a lie because we witnessed them both standing outside that camper. So that was just incredibly helpful to me, Mary. And also, I think when you're someone like me and you take your trauma and you shove it in a box at 9 years old, vowing that that trauma is never to come out, I also feel like I did lose memories when I did that. I don't know for certain if there were more than six times. Obviously, there was because the other girls who are now women in their 60s remember the camper scene. They remember, the hairs on their back of the neck were up. They ran away. So that was something for me that I'm like, well, you know, it doesn't matter how many times it was. What matters is how much I have grown and I've healed and able to become full circle about all of this. I mean, a year ago, Mary, I couldn't even talk about this without bawling. To me, that's how healing this has become. Over the years, I had, that box that I was telling you about, and I shoved everything in. Well, boxes leak. Trauma does not ever stay in a box. So I had multiple PTSD moments growing up where like a boy would try to kiss me the wrong way and I would flip out, or I was at an incident with a girlfriend and my brain converted her to the image of my brother. I'm the youngest of five. It is a sister, 10 and a half years older than me, and three brothers, and then me. My sister was moved out of the house at 17 and I was 7. So she did not know what was going on. as I mentioned, I kept all my trauma in a box. I wasn't going to tell my mom and dad. My sister, Diane, wasn't to know. And my brother, Dale, who was 2.5 years older than me, wasn't to know either because I just knew if I told them, they would tell mom and dad. And I grew up in an incredibly conservative, Christian, upper middle class home in the 70s. And back then, nobody talked about their problems. And so I shoved everything in a box. And in February of 2021, mom dies, dad has dementia. I get in a very big argument with one of the brothers who had sexually assaulted me. I had tried to get him to apologize 9 years prior, and the only thing he said to me was, I didn't think it bothered you that bad. Like, it was just such an awful response for a survivor to receive. So I think that was like hot molten lava building up in this box and on this argument 3 months after my mom passes away. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think my brain finally said, it's safe to tell. The people you were protecting the most are not available anymore to hear this truth. So I just said to him, look, you're not going to talk to me this way anymore. I'm not putting up with this. You won't pick up the phone. I can absolutely destroy your life if you want me to. And I say, rapist. His reply is, go for it. So little 7-year-old Darlene starts, text arguing with my brother because, again, this 57-year-old woman at the time just went back 50 years. And so what happened is, that argument happened. I said, look, if you just admit what you did and validate me, I will forgive you. And I was hoping for an apology and, just sincerity saying, yes, I did what I did. Well, instead, I got handed a lawsuit. He could not, and his wife could not face the fact that he had done this in his life. So in January 2022, I got handed a lawsuit. It took about 2 years to finally go to trial. All my traumas out in the world. I'm having to tell my children all of my survival tactics are back in full force. I am pushing everybody away because it's all about control. It's all about surviving. So we finally go to trial January 29th of 2024. I countersued my brother because he was telling everybody I was a psychopathic liar, that I had had a nervous breakdown. So 5-day trial, February 5th, 2024, unanimous jury of 12 in less than an hour said I was telling the truth and he was lying, and I won both cases. So I won. I was validated. It was such a relief to have that jury believe me because my lawyer had warned me that my story was so unbelievable and taboo and nobody talks about it that perhaps a jury wouldn't believe. It could be too painful, too harsh to believe. But once I was done with the trial, I was still so angry and so bitter, and I resented everything he had done to me. He made me go through trauma as a child. He made me relive my trauma on as an adult in a courtroom on a stand. And so I just decided at that moment, and all the PTSD I was going through, I decided I'm not done here. I have more healing to do. And I also now want to heal others and get the word out about sibling sexual trauma and abuse. So that's when I decided to write my book. That's when I decided to go on podcasts. And next year, I will be working towards becoming a motivational speaker with this story as my platform because little boys and girls need to know that this is a subject you do need to talk about. You do need to run and yell and tell your parents or anybody around. Shattering Silence, a story of survival, justice, and the power of telling the truth.